What's up, yo? Okay, well, it's the first Tuesday of the month, so we got Mr. Martz on the phone with us. But before we get any farther, let me begin the recording and we will proceed with the Liberty Talk.
The Constitution isn't just a document. It's a blueprint for freedom. We're breaking down politics at every level, exposing government overreach, and going where the mainstream media surely won't. Join us in defending individual rights against the bureaucratic tide. You're listening to the Missouri Liberty Report.
Alrighty, folks, we are back for another Marxist edition of the Missouri Liberty Report. So tonight's episode is all about the amendments that are going to be appearing on the August ballot. There will be 4 of them appearing on the August ballot. And as Tom said in the post that he made in the social medias, we are not here to tell you how to vote. We just want you to be informed so that when you go to the ballot box, you will have the best understanding that you can have before you decide. I've kind of made up my mind on everything, but I'm not here to necessarily sway your decision. Again, we all just want you to be as informed as you possibly can be when you go to vote yay or nay at the ballot box in August. So let me bring on the gentleman that forced is not the right word, has taught me better how to consider things before I make up my mind, especially when it comes to constitutionality of legislation here in Missouri. Mr. Martz, good evening to you, sir.
Good evening, but you may want to draw that comment back because we have found an area of the legislative review that we've been doing for the last since 2010, so that makes it 16 years. Once you see it, it can't be unseen, and we realized how badly we have screwed up.
Do tell.
Yeah, do tell.
What we had been doing in reality is when we look at a piece of legislation, even though we've been reading the title, we've actually been concentrating on what the subject of the title was. And what ended up happening is at some point this year, as we were reading the whole title, we didn't just concentrate on the subject. Say the subject is based on county assessors. So then we went into the piece of legislation. We found the section on county assessors and made sure that the part that they're putting in or removing is constitutional. What we realistically didn't think about, and this may be a show for next month, is the title of the bill actually specifically states that this is an act to rescind Revised Statute Missouri 192.050 or amend or change or something of that nature. Well, if in the title you're going to say that you're going to rescind 192.0650, and I'm going to do a substack on this too so it's easier to follow along, then you actually have to rescind that. But that's not what they're doing. They're realistically, in most instances, they're not rescinding anything. So I reached out to Mike Moon and asked him about it. And I reached out to Brian Wolfen too. I'm still waiting on his reply. But Mike sent my comment to the Senate, whoever writes the pieces of legislation and writes the title of the bill. And the response that I got back from them didn't even answer the question that I was asking because I was specific. You know, I defined what rescind means. That means to get rid of or to eliminate. But in the legislative sense. But if you're not rescinding anything and you're not eliminating anything, then by contrast, you're not doing what it says in the title of the bill that you're actually doing, which then means that you've got an Article 3, Section 23 violation.
Okay, so I mean, in totality, you just mean you've missed some other things because, like, maybe you said it was constitutional and it wasn't actually constitutional. I mean, is that what you're?
Yeah, but basically they're making changes to the legislation, and it does not meet the title of the legislation.
So just to kind of recap, just to make sure I get the gist of it, the bill will be like rescind some sort of something or tax, and then inside the bill, it doesn't actually do that. Just like they just ignore the part, but the bill title says it does something.
Uh-oh. Did we lose him?
Hang on, I've got a gentleman here who's towing my totaled out Mitsubishi Eclipse that had $9,000 in hail damage.
Oh, okay.
Oh man. Okay.
Well,
and he was supposed to be here a lot earlier.
Oh, you're
Oh,
good.
no
I'll just say this. I will still. So there might be more unconstitutional bills than you thought. Is the way I'm taking it.
Yes, there's going to be a whole lot.
Okay. At least I know that you guys are putting forth the effort, and I still trust your word over people like Jim Jones that tells me that they're shocked by these omnibus bills that go through the legislative body. Like, yeah, that never happened when you were Speaker of the House, Mr. Jim Jones. So yes, I'm sure that you're shocked. You're shocked by this. Also, I still trust. So you were I mean, to me, just to clarify for my thoughts, all you're saying is there's even more unconstitutional bills possibly than we thought, which is just worse than what we originally thought, which is a little disturbing.
I can't say I'm shocked.
Yeah, that would be correct.
Yep, not shocked. I'll tell you that.
But again, if I hadn't have gone to Robert Smith's campaign event and met Tom, I don't know if I would ever been thinking on the right track if I looked at a piece of legislation or looked at the title. I mean, if I saw 14 different things in a bill, I would be like, that's not okay. Because I've never liked omnibus bills to begin with. But, when you're talking about this other stuff, you're like, holy smokes, this is when they're saying rescind and they don't rescind, that's a whole nother ball game. And folks, lesson learned, or just another lesson here is when you look at a piece of legislation, look at the title, look at what they're trying to do. And if you go through there and it goes, it says they're rescinding something, but they're not. That just means like 90% of the other bad bills that they find, that's just another bad one. I mean, so just score another one for stupidity, I guess. I don't know. Or just Jesus Christ. Again, Brandon, are you shocked by this? Because I'm not.
No, not even in the slightest. Okay. Most legislators, over 90% of them, don't care if a bill has any parts constitutional. They're only cared about the ends, and they do not care about the means in any situation.
Very true. So there you go. All right, I'm going to pull up. This is from the Secretary of State's website. So I've got all the ballot measures pulled up because, again, we have Amendment 1, Amendment 2, Amendment 4, and Amendment 5 that are going to hit in August. And then Amendment 3 is the only one on the ballot, the only amendment on the ballot that I know of in the November election. So we've got them all. We can start with numero uno 1. And this one is all about, I believe it is just retaining this. I'm trying to remember what they call it. Resubmits the parks and soils tax to a vote of the people starting in 2008. That was, so they're just resubmitting it to the voters for approval. And this print is so freaking small. I'm trying to remember the amount that they're wanting to add. It's, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a super high number, but isn't like 1/4% No, it's 1/10 of 1% is levied and imposed upon all sellers for the privilege of selling tangible personal property or rendering taxable services at retail in the state. So an interesting part about this tax, there were some outdoorsmen, out hunter groups that were looking at the the CWD, how the Missouri Conservation Department was handling CWD. And suddenly it just shut off. And there was talk among some of these groups that they shut it off as it was approaching the time for this resubmission of this tax. And people are like, well, what does that have to do? This has nothing to do with CWD. But supposedly they were so worried about people being ticked off at conservation that they weren't going to approve any or a resubmission of any tax that had anything to do with, like, what is it? God dang it. DNR, public, state parks, any of that. Nobody was going to approve anything because there were so many hunters and so many landowners upset over the way they handled CWD. And there was a lot of hypocrisy. So my coworker, Tim, that was on the show a couple weeks ago, right? He's looked up the difference between the way Kansas and Missouri handle CWD. In Missouri, you can't put out like a big pile of corn to draw, bait deer in with corn. You can't do it in Missouri because Missouri's thinking is, oh, you'll draw the deer together and they'll spread the CWD amongst them and you'll compound the problem. But in Kansas, which is supposedly having the same issue, you can throw corn down to bait the deer in to kill them. So what's different in Kansas as opposed to Missouri, where in Kansas you pass through some magical border and then suddenly CWD doesn't spread amongst the deer if they're eating off the same corn pile. But if you go across into Missouri, suddenly the CWD can transfer between deer to corn pile. I don't know. It's stupid. But the differences between the way Kansas and Missouri is handling this there are tremendous differences. But CWD, according to some groups, was shut down over this actual amendment coming to the ballot. I don't get the ties, but they were just afraid they tick so many people off that they were not going to vote this back in. I would vote no on it just because I'm tired of these people resubmitting taxes all the time and then using the money for God knows what you can't hardly track, blah, blah, blah. Brandon, I don't know what your thoughts on this are, but.
Yeah, my thoughts are similar to yours. When the government puts a tax in place, they never have a plan to take it out. They just have a new way of spending the money once that task is complete. And so, yeah, again, I don't know enough about the issue. Like you said, it's a small number, comparatively speaking, to a lot of the stuff we spend money on. So I can't say I've done enough research to know if this money is worth it per se. But just my general rule of thumb always is, is this a necessary function of government? Yes or no? And this doesn't necessarily seem like a necessary function of government. And so my gut instinct would tell me to vote no on this.
I will also add that even though we're not even close to touching all these amendments yet, I am surprised by the amount of posts I've seen from people in like conservative grassroots are like no on everything. I'm like, wow, I'm not used to seeing this. There's a lot of conservatives out there that are awful big government when it comes to certain policies. And there's a lot of people like no on all of it. Like, you know what? Again, we're not here to tell you how to vote, but it is interesting the reactions that I'm seeing to a lot of these amendments. Tom, are you good to talk now, or are you still dealing with the tow truck?
No, I'm good. I'm just
Okay.
kind of heartbroken that I have to watch my car get towed off to the Saudi yard. But anyhow,
sometimes being too limited government type of guy apparently ticks off the hail gods and they target your vehicle.
Yeah, but it was one of those things we had went through, and we figured out that we were going to replace the convertible. We were going to redo the seats. The dash was immaculate. There was a couple little body things that needed to be done. We figured that we could probably get away with completely. If we wanted to completely restore it, it would cost us about $6,000. That's based on the fact that there was no body damage to the vehicle anywhere. It did need a new paint job. But then the hailstorm hit. So it's got dimples all over it. It's got rocket holes through the convertible top. It busted the little spoiler off the trunk lid. It broke it. So it's only connected part way. It's got dimples all over the place. And so when the State Farm lady calls me, she says, well, Mr. Martz, we've determined that it's going to cost like $9,000 to fix your 2001 Mitsubishi Eclipse GT Spider. I went, lady, that car ain't worth $9,000. It's not even worth, I don't think, a third of that $9,000. But yeah, anyhow.
Oh, man.
But yeah, if you go to, in the state constitution, if you go to the natural resources section, which is Article 9, Section 47, excuse me. This is where this tax gets implemented, because when it was first implemented, it was not implemented, so it had a long duration. That came in 2006, I believe. They passed, and I've been looking for the original. I was looking for the original piece of legislation that brought this forth, and it keeps referring me back to the state constitution. So I can't find the actual original document that brought this forth on the ballot, but I think it was brought forth on the ballot. It was in my opinion, if government is going to do a tax and it's specific for something that the people want, this is actually the way it should be done. It specifically goes to Department of Natural Resources, and it lays out the provisions by which it is that the tax is going to be appropriated and the tax is going to be used. And we just happen to be at that point right now that it's coming up for its renewal. Now, what I'd really like to see, and I know I can't get that because it's codified in the Constitution this way, I would really like to see these taxes have to literally stop for a whole entire year before they could bring it back up a year later to ask the people, okay, well, you've had a year to think about this. Would you like to restart this tax for this purpose? Or are you just fed up with it and you're done? But no, that's not what they do. They kind of put this in the manner of, well, it's not a new tax increase because you're already paying this tax and you're in year 9 3/4 of it. So let's just go ahead and renew it for the following 10 years. And you won't even notice that the cash that you haven't missed for the last 10 years is still missing for the next 10 years. But we can sell you on how it is that the money's been appropriated with state parks and water conservation, soil conservation, and all these different things that they're using it for. So if you like what the tax is being appropriated for, then I would recommend you go ahead and vote yes. If you don't like what the tax is being appropriated for, then I would recommend that you vote no. But either way, make sure that you are at least intelligent enough to figure out what the tax is for, how it's being appropriated. Is it being appropriated and expensed in a manner that is deemed appropriate for a government agency, and then vote accordingly.
Okay. Fair enough. All right. Well, let's move on to Amendment 2. Now, this one here, I just had so basically, it looks like so it looks like it's repealing Article 6, Section 18, and one new section adopted in lieu thereof to be known as Section 18B to read as follows. The Charter shall provide for its amendment for the form of the county government, for the number, kinds, manner of selection, terms of office, and salaries of the county officers, and for the exercise of all powers and duties of counties and county officers prescribed by the Constitution and laws of the state. However, such charter shall, and that has been stricken, require the assessor of the county to be an elected officer and to comply with all training provisions required by general law. So again, this one makes me a little uncomfortable, and maybe I'm wrong here. I'm just giving you my thoughts and my reaction to this. My thought is that we just went through the State Tax Commission and an NGO body leveraging power over every assessor in the state, pressuring them and threatening them if they didn't up the assessed values by up to 14.99%, that they were going to have their budgets pulled, or they wouldn't get any of the property taxes that they collected, or that assessor would lose their job. And I just feel like they're trying to bring everybody in, and I don't know. I just don't have I don't have a good feeling about this. Now, I am not as well versed on this as Tom is on charter governments and all that. So, Tom, I'm going to let you speak first to this. But this one makes me a little uncomfortable. But maybe you can change my mind here. Give me your thoughts on this one.
Well, you see what there where it says at the time, I don't know if you were actually on the bill or not, where it says joint resolution submitting to the qualified voters
Yes.
of Missouri an amendment repealing Section 18B.
Yep, of Article 6, yes.
Okay, well, they actually did not repeal Section 18B. They have repealed a section of
the section.
Section 18B. If you're going to proclaim to me that your amendment is repealing Section 18B, then 18B better be eliminated.
So that's funny that you brought that up, and here we are already talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, I read the title to make sure that it was copacetic with what it was that I discussed earlier. But literally, they are repealing a section of Section 18B. They're not repealing Section 18B. And then they are adopting a new section in lieu thereof relating to assessors, or you could make the case, and you can make the case that they are repealing a section because they're getting rid of, except for the charter of any county with a charter form of government and with more than 600,000 or fewer than 700,000 inhabitants. So they're repealing that section, and then they are adding and to comply with all training provisions required by general law. So what the General Assembly, in my opinion, are doing is they are making it so that the people who passed, I guess this is Jackson County, the people who voted on and passed the charter form of government of that county, now they're going to use the state to override the political subdivision known as Jackson County, if that's the one, because within the confines of the Constitution and because of the confines of the county charter, which is home rule, which was the people voting on it, it has a provision that somebody in the General Assembly does not like. So they are going to make it so that they are going to adopt, and in reality, that section that they're eliminating, if they would have followed Article 1, Section 2 of the state constitution, that would have never been put in there to begin with, because you're making it so that the charter form of government with more than 600,000 but fewer than 700,000 inhabitants is a specific county. And we all know that you have equal application of the law. That's part of Article 1, Section 2. They ignored that, adopted a constitution with that flaw in it. Now they're trying to make it so that the people go and vote on this to undo the unconstitutional provision, and then also to force compliance with the county charter, because the people adopted one that right now the people of the General Assembly are unhappy with.
Yeah, and I'm assuming this stems from the substantial increases in property taxes that hit Jackson County like last year and the year before. And I'm assuming, I know you're not supposed to assume, but I'm assuming this stems from that. They were upset about the substantial hikes in taxes, and maybe they thought this was a way to remedy that situation. That's my opinion.
Well, they can also amend the county charter to make it so that the county charter requires that the assessor be elected, instead of the state of Missouri using its bully pulpit to beat to death the people who live in Jackson County, because how dare you pass a county charter that we are now not in agreement with, and we're going to force you in line by amending the state constitution, when in reality, I believe they could amend the county charter to do the same identical thing.
Yeah. Brandon, your thoughts?
I mean, it kind of seems like the state of Missouri does this a lot. I mean, not particularly. So when I was reading over some other legislation or whatever, and like different parts of the budget, it'll be like, this is specifically for a city with more than 70,000 people, but less than 80,000 people in a county with more than 1 million people. And it's how it seems like the state of Missouri's always done weird cutouts to skirt around the applicableness of the law that Tom was describing earlier. And I guess I'm just in general confused. So this is on my own ignorance, though. So is this amendment supposed to make it where the people in Jackson County don't have to have an elected assessor, or because was it Jackson County where they making the property taxes too high and people were mad about it? Or is this something the state of Missouri doesn't like? So I guess the heart of the law, I'm just still a little confused on.
The
Like,
heart of
is this
the law, in my the heart of the law, in my opinion, is making it so that the state constitution is being used to force the city charter into compliance with the state constitution. Thereby, there will be an elected assessor in Jackson County instead of one that's appointed.
Okay. And the elected county assessors are normally more in line with what the state wants. Like they're more likely.
Well,
are the elected ones the more likely the ones that'll keep property taxes lower or try to like set some sort of standard?
Well, generally the elected ones are the ones that are forced to comply with whatever that goofy agency was that says that you have to up your property taxes by a certain amount, or else you're not going to get your funding. However, the essence of electing an assessor means that he works directly for the people. But somehow, once you get elected into that position, many of them forget that they work directly for the people, and they believe for some reason they work for the county government via the direction of the state government, which is how we ended up with what John was discussing earlier about all these different counties just skyrocketing the property tax to meet the assessed rate based on whatever that criteria was by that, I think it was a non-governmental entity that was requiring it.
Yeah, John was covered that at one point. Was the tax commission or something?
So I'm trying to
STC?
find the NGO that so okay. It says the state tax commission. I'm reading from a Substack. The state tax commission invited over 70 elected assessors to Jefferson City during the winter of 2025. They handed Missouri assessors an MOU, memorandum of understanding, with the majority of them feeling they had no other option than to sign it. Why? Because if they did not sign it and commit to raising taxes in their county, the state tax commission vowed that they would withhold sales tax from each county that refused to sign the STC's contract. But it doesn't mention the NGO that the STC worked with hand in hand to develop this, but yeah, I cannot, and at least in this Substack, and I just tried to do a general search for it, and I cannot find. I know the Shield Maidens had something on it, but I that's a ways back that they wrote something or did a podcast on it, and they mentioned the NGO, but just a general search, I'm not finding what I want to. So, and that's the thing. I don't understand generally. I know several years back, the alderman of Owensville had kind of looked at, instead of having a city marshal, which was an elected position, looked at trying to move to an appointed chief of police. And I voiced my opinion very strongly on that, very loudly, that said, I don't like this, because when you have an appointed person, you run the risk of them doing the bidding of the elected officials rather than the people. So like a chief of police, something like that. I don't know why you want, I mean, we have these higher offices or these administrations or bureaucracies in Missouri. You've got the Department of Social Services, you've got the health department, all those are appointed. Those are appointments of the governor. And there is no accountability with the people. So I don't know why you would want an appointed assessor or anything, because there's no way you're going to vote them out. They would have to make the county executives or the city aldermen angry enough to find a replacement. So I don't know why you would want to appoint an assessor, because you just lack even more control over that person. But again, this is Missouri, and we like to do things backwards sometimes. So there's that.
Well, the State Tax Commission is an administrative agency under the direction of 3 commissioners who are appointed by the governor and approved by the Senate. The commission is given the responsibility of ensuring the uniform and equitable assessment of all taxable tangible property in the state. To assist the commission in fulfilling this responsibility, there is a staff of appraisers, technicians, and hearing officers located in Jeff City and throughout the state. It is currently headed up by Gary Romine, which is a former elected official. Debbie McGinnis is another commissioner. I'm not too sure if she was elected at any point, but that name does look familiar, at least the last one. And Greg Razor, who I absolutely know for a positive fact, he was a former elected official in the state of Missouri.
There's a Angela Romine that's running for Senator
Yeah,
House.
she's running. Yeah, she's running against. God, I can't remember his name. Not Brian Seats. Jamie Gregg. That's who she's running against.
Oh, I just wonder. I didn't know if she was any relation to the gentleman you just mentioned. That's why I brought that
She
up.
is not, but she does a mean massage.
Oh yeah.
She's a massage therapist, and yeah, she's. I think she's just a step lower than a chiropractor.
Oh wow.
But man, some of the things that she does with these weird spoons, and she'll start rubbing them on your back, and the next thing you know, you're screaming in pain, but it feels fabulous.
That was a hell of a picture you just painted there, Tom. So yeah, I really wish I could find out what I really wish I could find in the search what NGO the STC worked with, because I believe out of the whole state, the last time I remember covering this was there was 4 or 5 assessors was all that were like, we don't want to do this because we feel like we're going to tax people out of their homes. And it was pretty much silence from the rest of them. But there were 4 or 5, and they were all across. I think one was in northern Missouri. There was one in southern Missouri. I can't remember where the other ones were located, but most of them just went along because they were told that if they didn't sign it, they could just be removed from office. And that blows my mind that. Also, I hated the fact, Tom, and I know we talked about this before. I hated the fact that they used the Hancock Amendment as an excuse why everybody had to jump it up 15%. I'm sorry, 14.99%. They used the Hancock Amendment for some of their reasoning, like, well, we got to be equal with this. Like, yeah, you could just be equal and not jump assess values up by 15%, but instead you're using it in a negative way and saying, well, we're following the Constitution. Yeah, okay. That's lovely. I'm so glad you guys are on top of your constitutionality and love the Hancock Amendment that much. But that just a few of the things that happened, or the things that I can remember when this started rearing its ugly head. And yeah, no, I think Gary's right. I think Jackson County used AI for their assessments by an appointed tax assessor. So they just used AI to just kind of like spit numbers out, and they just sent the bills out. I don't remember. God, the increases were freaking astonishing. The increased amounts of taxes was absolutely ridiculous. And it caused quite the uproar. But I like how it says that they'll be trained. All training provisions required by general law. I can tell you that doesn't give me the warm and fuzzies either, gentlemen. I don't know how you feel about it, but that doesn't give me a good feeling in the pit of my stomach. That makes my stomach drop. I don't know how you feel about that, but just because their trainings that are approved by general law doesn't, I don't suddenly have more faith in my tax assessors. I don't know how you feel about it, Tom, but
I just love the amount of money that's appropriated out of my income to pay for my property taxes.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, what was it 2 weeks ago, Brandon, you and I covered an article about the tax increases in Nashville, and then they set aside a fund to help offset the increase that they put on the businesses in Nashville. And it's like, that makes 0 sense. You didn't even have to raise it. Now you have to steal money from another pot to create a fund to help offset the taxes that you increased. You went 14 steps and came back to a really horrible conclusion. I don't know. Or a resolution there.
No, and also one thing that people have to think about too is that just because the value of your property went up does not mean the government needs more money. That's just there's no direct correlation. Like,
Yeah.
oh, my house is worth more money. That means everyone else needs paid more. It just doesn't make any sense. Like, I mean, you'd have to lay out the reason you need the money, not just be like, well, this is the way we do it. Houses are worth more, government gets more. It's nope. Lay out the reasons you need that money, and then we can talk.
Yeah, and then like our local school district is losing its mind because statewide education funding dropped by 190 million. And I'm like, yes, but all of our assessments went up 15%, which means you're still going to get more revenue than you did the year before. So they just act like they're not getting any more money at all. It's like, that can't be right, because you're getting more money from all of us for whatever people are having to pay in for Gasconade County R2 schools. That money went up because we just suffered a 15% increase. So what are you bitching about? But that's the schools. And, again, we get back to this thing. They can never get enough money. Okay, well, let's move on to Amendment 4. This one also does not give me the warm and fuzzies. This is rather long. I'm not going to read all this, but this is a joint resolution in the House. And this section shall be known as the Protect Missouri Voters Amendment. For purposes of this section, a statewide ballot measure shall mean any, blah, 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 blah. Let's see. Okay, let's see. No political committee that makes expenditures or contributions in support of or in opposition to a statewide ballot measure shall knowingly or willfully receive, solicit, or accept, whether directly or indirectly, contributions from a foreign adversary of the United States or a foreign national. Now, I'm just going to stop there, because here's my problem. And then, Tom, you can go into more depth than this, than I'm going to. I love how all the time, especially Republicans, have to make it seem like we're under attack from a foreign adversary. And it's like, you don't even need their help. You guys screwed up plenty. You guys are taking loads of money from lobbyists. To me, a foreign adversary is the least of my concern. You guys could mess up a bowling ball with a toothpick, and I'm supposed to be worried about China interfering or proposing these ballot initiatives. I mean, I'm not going to say there hasn't been out-of-state money influencing medical marijuana or recreational marijuana is one of those things. So we've got people in this country, or in this state in particular, that love to ruin things. I'm not worried about foreign adversaries right at this moment. Thank you very much. I'm worried about you guys. You guys can't seem to figure this out for the most part. This is just like the fear porn part of it. And people are going to, unfortunately, people grab onto this. It's just like the whole thing with the data centers. I've kept making comments, and I've made comments in posts about data centers. And I've said Republicans didn't want the Chinese buying up farmland so they could sell it and give tax abatements to people who want to build big data centers. And people are like, well, I don't like either one. And I haven't responded really and said, if you made laws saying that if I had a 2,000-acre farm and I wanted to sell it to somebody and they were of another nationality, and you create a law saying that I couldn't do that, that's highly unconstitutional. And not very small government of you, but I haven't replied like that. But anyway, Tom, if you want to cover more of this, when I read that, it absolutely, I'm already losing my mind over here. And I'm tired of the foreign adversary and the boogeyman from across the sea and using that fear porn to try to affect the voters into voting for something. Because before I do this, let me see what the, oh, that's just a certificate of the, I was trying to find the actual, what the ballot language is going to say. And okay, fair ballot language. A yes vote will amend the Missouri Constitution to modify current requirements of Article 3 and Article 12 that a simple statewide majority of voters may approve initiative petitions to amend the Constitution, require a majority of voters in each congressional district to approve initiative petitions to amend the Constitution, and make available to each voter the full text of initiative petitions with their ballot. A no vote will not amend the Missouri Constitution or require majority approval, blah, blah, blah. Your thoughts, Tom? I just don't like, again, I don't like the foreign adversary thing right there in the beginning of that joint resolution. That crap drives me nuts.
Okay, for those people who have followed the General Assembly, this is IP reform.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with, in my opinion, the problem with IP reform is you create a two-tiered system by which it is that an amendment can be put into the state constitution. You've got the General Assembly can do one, put it to the ballot, and then, of course, a simple majority allows that amendment to be placed into the Constitution. Or you have the initiative petition process, which is where people go out and gather signatures and they try to get the legislature to do something that they've refused to do legislatively. So the people are kind of stuck, and they believe at a point where, well, the only thing that we can do is put it in the Constitution. And I think medicinal marijuana is probably one of the best examples of why it is that the people get frustrated, because realistically, the General Assembly only had to remove cannabis, hemp, marijuana, just remove those things off of the Schedule 1 in the state of Missouri. Put them in Schedule 4, put them in Schedule 5, just take them off completely and allow that to be a crop, a commodity, something that could be bought and sold, free market stuff. Those things that we're always told that we are, but for some reason we can never get there. So the people decided, well, we're going to pass this amendment. They put a lot of legal ease in that amendment. I think in all sincerity, most people in the state of Missouri, when they hear IP reform, they actually in their head may be thinking constitutional amendment reform. Ergo, if you want to put something into the Constitution, it does not get put in there by a simple majority. It has to get a kind of like the criteria by which it is you can amend the U.S. Constitution. It takes 3/4 of the states to approve an amendment in order for it to be put into the U.S. Constitution. We could do the same identical thing here. Take the state representative districts. 3/4 of the state representative districts have to pass by a majority of vote a constitutional amendment. Therefore, it goes into the state constitution. What the General Assembly is doing right now is creating a two-tiered system by which it's easier for them to amend the Constitution than it is for the people to do it by the initiative process to get something done that the General Assembly is completely ignoring.
Okay,
and that's my 2 cents. I'm not even going to go in to that foreign adversary crap, because in my opinion, that is actually a different topic than initiative petition reform.
Okay, real quick, I just want to jump back on the tax commission thing. So there is an organization called the IAAO, and it is a NGO that every elected assessor is subject to in Missouri due to the Missouri State Tax Commission adopting their standards and then forcing elected assessors to sign an MOU promising to use those standards too. If they don't, they will see their sales tax withheld. So that is the IAAO standards that the STC is forcing assessors to adopt. It is, and there, this is not, I haven't, this is just what the Shield maidens are saying. I haven't verified this. It is likely the IAAO standards are driven by AI. This is considered by our state tax commission to be fair and equitable. If this is not the case, then how are the evaluations across Missouri seeing a uniform recommended increase of 15%? Okay. I just wanted to add that in before we continued on.
So my opinion on Amendment 4 is, well, first of all, to your point, our enemies are not overseas. They're in Washington or they're in Jefferson City. That's where the enemies are. But this reminds me of when they basically outlawed ranked choice voting in Missouri. But they added that caveat where it's like this this amendment also keeps illegals from voting. If you vote against this, you must want illegals to vote in our elections. And so, yeah, it's very reminiscent of that. It's like it's their initial agenda is reform IP so that the people have a harder time than the legislators getting things moved. But they add in that caveat of the foreign nationals and foreign adversaries just to, well, if you vote against this, you must want foreign adversaries to take over Missouri. And so, yeah, I mean, it's stupid language they added in there just to trick some people into voting for it who initially would have been against it. And yeah, I definitely think I mean we talk about this all the time, but I'm always going to piggyback off what Tom said there and just say that we definitely need it harder across the board for people to amend the Constitution. We need all of these constitutional amendments to go into separate revised statutes, and so we don't have this problem.
Yeah, the state legislative body, the Republicans have came out several years in a row and saying IP reform was one of their big missions. They wanted to get it done. I believe there was one pretty decent piece of legislation that would have made it. I don't believe it would have made it still easy for the legislative body and harder for people. It just in general, they were looking to make it harder to amend the Constitution, and people were throwing temper tantrums and hissy fits, and the bill would get laid over, or they would just end the session early, and just it came to a fight for 2 or 3 years in a row. But every year when they came back to session, IP reform was one of the big ticket items. We're going to get this done. We have to get this done. We have to protect the Constitution. Yeah, we need to get it done. It's way too easy to amend the Constitution. But they couldn't get along. And then because they couldn't get it done, now they want to make this, they want this amendment on the ballot. Of course, they're all trying to scare us into saying, oh, well, it's too easy to amend the Constitution. Yeah. Again, I haven't seen a lot of public support of this amendment either. And again, I'm not saying that I have to have public support for me to support it or not. I'm just saying that I haven't seen a lot of public support for this, unless it's like Republicans trying to get out there and behind a microphone and show how they're trying to fix this so they can, we don't have foreign agents or out of state money amending our Constitution. And I'm like, I can pick a handful of things that got put on the ballot. They got stuck into the Constitution that should have never been there. Bingo. It seems like I remember people talking about the bingo thing years ago, even though I was not up on any of this, didn't pay attention to any of it. I can remember people talking about the whole bingo thing. But now we got abortion, we got recreational marijuana. It just seems like every time you turn around. And the legislative body, so like so many other times, was spineless, or they couldn't work together and come up with something that was actually protect the people and protect the Constitution, and also kind of stymie the legislative body. And anytime you talk about taking away a little bit of their power, they get a little spicy on that. So this is their so-called remedy for the situation. And I'm not a fan, just not a fan. All right, let's get to the last one. This is the This is the one that has the most people's buttholes on fire. And I make statements and posts on this all the time. I mean, we've covered this one several times. This stems from HJRs 173 and 174. It is the elimination, or listen, folks, again, I'm not telling you how to vote. This is my opinion only. These opinions, the following opinions that are about to be expressed are those of the hosts and not the advertisers or the networks that carry the show. Okay? I'll just put that out there, that disclaimer out there, right? I'm just saying no one has put forth anything like a somewhat detailed plan or anything that assures me that this won't take 20 years to do. They're like, oh, I've seen it won't take that long. You don't know. But I've posted this. I've had state reps post something about it and say, this is really good. And I go, I'm looking for sound reasoning why I should support this. And I get nothing. I get 0 comments back. So that doesn't make me have any more faith in the institution that they're doing something right. But the biggest thing to me here is they want to suspend the Hancock Amendment. Is it 3 years? I believe that, and then they can tinker with numbers and try to figure it out. And I'm sorry. I think Tom's comment in the last response I had to a post was perfect when it showed a guy putting on a clown mask and it just said, trust me, bro. I think that sums it up rather nicely. Tom, I'll let you delve into this, lay it out for us. I can just tell you right now, my opinion, strictly, I haven't seen anything that would make me trip all over myself to go vote yes on this amendment. My opinion.
Okay, this may show my boomer age, but there used to be a time when we didn't have navigation by phone. So when you were planning a trip from New York to California, you actually sat down and you worked out on a road atlas what direction you were going, where you were going to stop, when you needed fuel, where you were going to spend the night. All those different things were either embedded firmly in the marshmallow that's up there between your ears, or you actually wrote it down. And the reason I bring that up is because what they're doing here, let's say they're trying to go from New York to California, but they're doing it with a trust me, bro mentality. I'm going to get into the car, I'm going to turn the key on, and I'm just going to start heading west. I don't know how I'm going to get anywhere. I don't know where it is I'm going to stop. I don't know where it is that I'm going to get gas. I don't even know if I'm going to get gas at the cheapest price. But I'm going to head off in that direction. There literally, from what I can tell, there is not a plan that anyone has formulated which says specifically, well, we are going to eliminate a percentage of your income tax, and in place of that, we're going to start applying, let's say, a gross receipts sales tax on people who do servicing, like your lawn guy, the guy who comes and fixes your HVAC system, the guy who comes out and fixes your water heater. In my case, the guy who comes out and works on your water treatment system, where it's all labor related. There's not actually anything that functionally needed to be purchased, but there is a bill, there is a money transaction based on the fact that a service call occurred and an individual had to drive to your house. So we're going to now assess a certain amount of taxation onto that, and that will eliminate this portion of your income tax. But no, that's not what they've done. They've made it so that you realistically don't have a clue of what taxes are going to get increased, if any. You don't know exactly at what rate your income tax is going to decrease, if any. there's no rock solid, in my opinion, there's no rock solid provision that allows for a mano y mano. We're going to eliminate this. We're going to create this, and they're going to offset. Or this is going to offset a little bit higher than this, but in the next transition, we'll make up for that part of the issue. And I think it's where they actually would get in trouble with the Hancock Amendment if they, because basically they say that they're going to, it's up to the legislative body to determine what all gets taxed, what gets reduced, what gets removed, all these different things that occur. But none of that's in writing, nor do you want it in writing. But I at least want a roadmap that points the direction on how it is that you're going to get from New York to LA. What interstates are you going to use? Where are you going to spend the night? Where are you going to get gas? All the particulars that are required when you're trying to navigate from a completely an area that you're completely comfortable with to an area that you're completely uncomfortable with. And right now we're comfortable with an income tax. We're comfortable with a sales tax. One of those is supposed to be eliminated. For however long it takes, one of those is supposed to be gone, that being the income tax, which means we better get comfortable with a sales tax on things that currently are not taxed. And we better get comfortable with an increase in certain applications of taxes, whether it be on your vehicle, whether it be on the transactions and sales of real estate, which I know the real estate people are not really in favor of, whether you're going to start seeing sales tax applied higher to food, to used items at thrift stores. All these different things need to be thought about before somebody decides to press the button and say yay or nay on this amendment.
So one thing I think that kind of gets missed in a little bit of this, and objectively speaking, so I guess I shouldn't say objectively speaking. Every policy that I've seen before in the past where they talk about eliminating the income tax, they start at the highest bracket and then work their way down. So definitely in the transition period, and I would guess more likely overall, what you're going to see is the top income earners are going to be paying less taxes. And then all the people who earn less money are going to be paying more taxes in sales tax. So I think in a roundabout way, this is going to shift the burden of taxes from the wealthier downward to the less wealthy. And I know for a fact that the people of Missouri are going to have a hard time swallowing that pill. Like when it starts coming out that like the top earners pay less in taxes than they were and the bottom earners are paying more in all of these sales taxes that get added on, I think you're going to see even more of like a revolt against this from the people if it does ever get implemented. Because it just seems naturally that higher income earners are going to be paying less in taxes because of this. And the lower, and again, whether or not you think that's fair or just, because the top 1% usually pays the majority of the taxes anyway, like however you view that, I just know that the people of Missouri are going to be, that's going to be a tough pill to swallow for a lot of people there. And then also, like Tom said, we haven't seen any kind of a plan. But I've theorized on this show before. I think they know. Like I think that they're trying to preach this as if it's going to be a tax decrease. But I think they know where they're going to have to increase their taxes to make up that difference, at least in like a basic outline of what they're going to have to do, and they just don't want to tell us that part. That's what I think. Again, could be wrong on that, but that's still my opinion.
I mean, you very well could be correct, Brandon. Again, it just irritates me that a legislative body that has not proven itself trustworthy now wants me to just forget all of my doubts in them, and now they want me to trust in them again. And I just can't do it. I mean, you come at me preaching to me how conservative you are, or how Republican you are, and how limited government you are, and you want to lower taxes and you want to cut spending, and they don't do any of it. They don't do any of those things. They don't fix the education system. They don't. Again, we just went through a thing with the state tax commission, and 74 of these assessors saying, hey, you need to play ball, increase the assessments, or you're in trouble. Okay. And now I'm supposed to forget everything that I've learned about you over the last several years, take all that, dump it from my memory banks, and just give you a nice clean start. And there's even some legislators that I agree with on some things that are just very, very upset if you disagree with this. And that really bugs me, because I'm sitting there thinking, I thought you were smarter than this. I thought you knew better, which also lends to your point a little bit, Brandon. Like, they have something kind of lined out that they don't want to tell the people. And I'm sorry, if you can't be transparent enough to come out and say, this is what's going to happen for a while, then no, I am not going to give you a no or yes vote on this. I am absolutely not going to show you a little faith. No. If you can't be trusted enough to just come out and tell me the truth, then why would I support something this ignorant? And again, the radio personnel, a lot of these radio personalities are coming out, and they're just everybody's just kind of poking fun at people who don't want to eliminate the income taxes. Like, nobody here, I don't think any liberty-oriented people would ever say, well, no, absolutely, I want to keep the income tax. None of them are saying that. What we're saying is, A, you don't have a plan to really cut spending and do something about the budget, which is at times gotten close to the Illinois' budget. You don't have a plan for that. You don't have anything laid out for that. And you seemingly don't have a well laid out plan that the people would like as far as the elimination of the income tax. You can't guarantee us it'll be done in a few years. So no, I'm sorry. I can't throw my support behind this. And I can't hardly tolerate these people who want to treat me like I'm some kind of alien life form because I don't want to climb on board. Like, again, why are we, don't other people, does anybody else out here that's listening to this or watching this, you get tired of being treated like a douche canoe because you don't agree with your legislative body when they want to do something retarded? And then they want to point at you and, oh, you're voting with the Democrats if you don't okay, so I'm voting with the Democrats on this. Cool. It doesn't mean I'm a Democrat. Just means I don't agree with you. I think they're wacky too, but on this point, we're in agreement, and I'm going to follow along. And I'm not following along, but I'm going to vote no with the rest of them. Doesn't mean that I support their party or their ideologies. It just means I don't support your plan. But I get so tired of even people who I would normally think are pretty smart trying to put me in a box with a label on it because I'm not following along with the Republican plan, or as Senator Eigel would call it, the big red things. We got to get big red things done in the state of Missouri. So that's just my 2 cents on it. I don't trust these people. I don't trust the majority of them. I don't want to put them all in the same basket, but the majority of them I don't trust. And folks, I've wanted to say this the last 2 weeks, and we'll move on here. I think, especially in primary season and when we close in on the November elections, I think everyone out there within the sound of my voice should go to legiscore.us, look at the constitutional voting scores of those that are running in the primaries, or if they're not being primary, they're running in a November election, and use that to cyberbully your government officials. If they're going to proclaim that they want to defend and support the Constitution, pull up their voting score and just paste it in the comments section on their posts. Just cyberbully the hell out of them. I think Legiscore's website, the Lock and Smith Foundation's website, is a perfect. Now, I'm not saying this. Tom's not saying this. This is John Williams saying this. Okay. I'm not putting words in their mouth. I'm not saying this is what they want you to do. I'm just saying I think you can use the Lock and Smith's website, legiscore.us, as a perfect cyberbullying tool for those who want to come out and preach to you how conservative and small government minded they are. That I'm just putting that out there. It is fun to do to people like Nick Schroer and some of the others. It's really fun to do because they don't respond. But it's really fun because other people see it and they're like, hey, thanks for posting that. And like, you're welcome. You can join in on the fun too.
Well, with Nick Schroer in particular, he'll just post a stupid meme face back. No,
True.
that's what you would expect from a sitting senator, not a well thought out answer to reply to a potential constituent. No. He wants to just go full meme blast. That's his strategy. I will say, I brought this up a couple times before. I think, like, this is the libertarian, like the anarcho-capitalist in me speaking. I think the sales tax is the easiest to skirt. I think it's harder to find a job where people will pay you cash versus having a business and getting people to pay you cash, or like having a product and selling it online where you can take Venmo or cash or whatever. Maybe not Venmo if it's under $600, I guess.
There you go.
But I think it's the easiest one to skirt. So in a twisted anarchist way, I kind of want to see the income tax get eliminated because that's going to save me money. And then I can just start buying things from my agorist network of friends and I won't have to worry about sales tax or income tax, and I'll get around both of them. So I think, I'm only half joking. I think that is a part of a consideration maybe some people could think about. Like, how easy is it to skirt income tax versus sales tax for those who think taxes are theft in general? And then I had another thought, but I forgot it.
Tom, what say you?
Well, as an individual who spends 4.5 months reading legislation,
Absolutely.
And then luckily for us, we found an individual who now it doesn't take us 3 months to score the legislation. It infuriates me that you've got a group of people who like to make the case that they are constitutional, but yet they've never read the document. They've never opened the document. They've never researched the document. I mean, when I first went down this road in the early 80s, I was humble enough to know that I didn't know anything. So I absorbed those things that people brought about, they talked about. I ended up researching some things that, okay, well, that person's not actually factually accurate. So perhaps when I get to the point of talking about this, I'll go to the point of where it is that it's factually accurate. There are a bunch of people who do not like to be informed that they don't know what it is that they don't know that they think they know. And sadly, we've got a bunch of those people up in Jefferson City. We've got a bunch of those people in every single county in the state of Missouri. We've got a bunch of those people that sit on every single city council. And I looked at the Missouri Constitution class that is given to the K through 12 students, and literally there's nothing in there that would lead any individual to believe or should believe that they've actually studied the Constitution. Because the questions on the test are so mundane. Like, at what age can you be elected a state senator? At what age can you be elected a state representative? How many terms are you allowed to serve as a governor? There's no deep analysis of what's codified in the Constitution. I always like to tell people it's the people's law, but it's not the people's law unless the people want to start enforcing it. And we've got two individuals, for lack of a better basis, that they do the best that they can do. That's Bryant Wolf and that's Mike Moon. And we realized that with the Lockett Smith Foundation, we realized that there's some stuff that you don't dare vote no on, even though you know it's unconstitutional. It would just be a very bad look. You know, I can overlook those things, but when you are consistently telling people how constitutional you are, how much of a conservative you are, and then you are constantly down in the bottom 1/3 of the point scores, please don't tell me how constitutional you are and don't tell me how conservative you are. I'm not buying it.
Yeah, like a Lincoln Huff, who's like 3 from the bottom in the Senate. But
He's a scholar, man.
Oh yeah, that guy is on it. He is on top of his game as far as that Missouri Independent article they put out, and he's like, "Oh, the Republicans have changed." Yeah, you're one of them, dude. You wouldn't know the Constitution if it hit you in the head. You wouldn't know small government if it hit you in the head. If
he doesn't even know what's in the party platform.
No. And I mean, do any of them really know what's in the party platform? No, not the way they vote. Honestly, I think the party platforms like DOA, and now it's go speed date with lobbyists and make all the friends you can so you can get plenty of campaign donations. And then, you know, when you get in there, the MHRC or the MRHC, like when you get in there, they'll hand you an envelope and they'll say, "We want you to raise this much money for us." How's that? How is that representing the people that elected you? If right out of the gate you got somebody handing an envelope saying, "This is how much we'd like for you to raise for us," and depending on the district and the size and the population will depend on the size of the donation that they want you to get, or the amount of money they want you to raise. And it's like, how's this working out for the people if that's one of the first things that gets handed to you when you take office every legislative year? That right there should tell you everything you need to know about 98% of those people in that building. In my opinion, that there are priorities there, and for, again, 98% of them, you are not it, except in words, but actions are sorely lacking when it comes to their votes. So yeah, I don't hold any faith in these people. Listen, can we talk about one thing? We have like 12 minutes left because this is another hot topic. Brandon and I have discussed this before. Tom, I'd like to get your thoughts on the big data center debate here in Missouri, because here's what makes me uncomfortable. That people like Jim Jones and people of his ilk are telling me that I am retarded or I am falling in line with Democrats, because Jeffco Patriot Radio just had a Facebook post. It's like 2026, kit for people who want to protest. And one of them said, no data centers, no AI data centers. That was part of the 20. Basically, everybody that doesn't like them falls in line with the progressive protester movement in the state of Missouri. And I thought, and somebody commented below, rightly so, that said, you got a lot of conservatives that don't like data centers. Think it's real smart to lump all these people together? You might want to rethink that one. I was like, good for you. Good for pointing that out. But just give me your thoughts on all this, the data center back and forth, and just your thoughts on the topic in general, Tom.
On the topic itself, I don't think people really understand what the purpose of these data gathering information centers are. I mean, it will direct the national surveillance state, which is now on freaking hyperdrive under this current administration. It will eventually think of all the things that you have stored in your phone on an iCloud. Think of all the things that your doctor has stored on you on an iCloud. Think of all the things that the government has stored on you on an iCloud. Think of all the things that your computer has stored on you on an iCloud. Think about when you go grocery shopping, when you use your credit card, when you the endless possibilities are astounding. Right now, all of those things are kind of kept separate. They're in different layers. So once you get to a point where you've got enough data information centers out there that these things can then start being blended. The prescription drug monitoring program was one of those things that we fought for years and years and years because we didn't want that information to be gleaned. We didn't want it on the driver's license. We didn't want it on a voting record. We didn't want a voting record and a driver's license to go together. Well, that's going to come to an end. As soon as they get enough data centers to completely funnel all that information together so it's in one location, there is nothing that John Williams or Brandon Doherty can do in their life that won't be tracked and stored on a government computer somewhere. And should you decide to say something, do something, or even think that you might want to challenge the system, they will very easily be able to take you out without anyone's knowledge, because whatever it is that they need to have to make it so that you're guilty of something, it will be there, and there isn't nothing that you can do about it. I think it's a huge violation of the Fourth Amendment. I honestly believe it's also a huge violation of the Third Amendment. Of course, that one takes some really in-depth conversations to figure out, but third, fourth, ninth, 10th, for people to want these things, and if you want it for the military, fine and dandy. Do not merge my military with the Israeli military, though. Keep them two separate. But if you want it for military, I'm fine with that. But when you want it to track me 24/7, 365 in everything that I do, or those people that are part of my family and part of my good friends, no, I'm not in favor of that at all.
Okay. And so here's the thing. We got the two big ones going up there by New Florence, Missouri. One's for Google, and I don't remember who the other one's for, Amazon. And of course, Kehoe got out and bragged about him. He also bragged about the 15 years of tax abatements they got. And so to the Republicans out there that want to scold me for not backing the data centers, all these data centers, and then the same people who want to talk to me about the Constitution. Like, listen, this is government, again, picking winners and losers. And please don't come at me with, well, we just have to do this so we can get them in a state. We don't need them in a state. I haven't looked into this enough, but somebody said the other day that China is also pushing these data centers. They have a much larger population than we do. Now, again, I know they have people in outlying areas that are more rural. They're not all in big cities, but they have 10 times less the data centers that we do. And as we're building them now, they still have 10 times less data centers than we do. I don't know if that's a factual number. That's what someone posted. I haven't researched that enough yet to confirm that. If that's true, it does make me wonder, what are we doing here? Some people are saying this is strictly for AI, and this will bring about all these great revolutionary things in technology. I'm not saying that AI couldn't bring about some really big technological advances. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying when we have in this state supposedly conservative, small government minded people pushing for these huge data centers, and apparently the maybe somebody in Festus is as part of this Jeffco Patriot Radio, because he was saying, like, we had a thing from environmental study, and they said all of our regulations and everything that we put on there for a data center was like, that's the best thing they've ever seen. And it's like, okay, so what's that supposed to mean? The people are just supposed to look at that and go, oh, cool, they've got it figured out and change their. So it's like almost like he was saying, I don't know what these people are upset about because we did a really good job of regulating it. It doesn't matter. They didn't want it there. You chose to do it anyway. And apparently Festus now has plenty of signatures to recall the mayor and even more aldermen. I think they're still working on removing a couple of aldermen or some other officials, but the signatures are plenty to recall the mayor of Festus now. So he's looking at probably being ousted from his job relatively soon, maybe. With all that being said, again, I don't get this warm, fuzzy feeling in my heart when the supposed conservative voices in Missouri are telling me that I'm a horrible person for not backing these data centers. And I'm like, if you guys clearly have some lobbyist ties, and if you're trying to call me a Democrat or a progressive for not backing them, if you think that's going to turn me into a supporter, you're dead wrong. It's going to not even out of spite, just because the way you're acting, it makes me trust you and them even less. Brandon, we got 4.5 minutes. Your parting thoughts on this.
I want to reiterate your part about transparency. I think that's the biggest issue a lot of people have right now with these data centers is they just don't release any information. And then all of a sudden they're like, we're building one. Here it is. Especially when you've had the track record that some data centers have with being too much light pollutant, too much sound pollutant, a resource drain. I definitely understand the sentiment that Tom has, that this is a network that the government will use to track people. But he sent us a message in the group chat not long ago about something that was released in the, or Tom did, in the WikiLeaks files about how they're already using smart TVs and everything else to track all your data. Edward Snowden is still overseas somewhere hiding from the American government because he's exposed how the government is already tracking everyone's data all the time. So I mean, I understand his point, obviously, too, about them being able to consolidate it with these data centers. The only caveat I'll have is that I think that like I personally have used AI for answering questions, creating logos, images, other things. Like small businesses in particular are going to benefit greatly. Like small businesses now have like it used to be big corporations could pay for advertising. They could pay for all of these other different things. And I think that AI could be very beneficial to helping small businesses compete against bigger businesses just based on the technology they're providing. But I mean, again, everything, I think all of these factors need to be weighed. And I think the problem is the people who are yelling at you, John, about you're not supporting the data centers, they're not doing a very good job at laying out all of this information. And so I definitely, like I said, I think there needs to be cause for concern, but I also don't like giving the government the power to tell people they can't build something somewhere. I think that's also another precedent that people have to think about. I am excited about the guest we're going to have on our show next week, Jake Jackson, because he has spoken at the St. Charles City Council against the data centers when they ended up pushing that memorandum that basically changed the zoning laws to outlaw building a data center in the city of St. Charles. So to build one now, they'd have to go back to the city council and then change the zoning laws.
And the flock cameras too.
But he is big on these flock cameras because I think the county council unanimously voted to allow flock cameras. And so now he's trying to start a petition to get enough signatures to basically make the county aware that and we've got Agorizer and Porky Sparky in the comments talking about how the license plate readers, that's the first step in the mass surveillance system. Like what Tom's worried about, the data centers are where they're going to store all the information that they get from the things like the flock cameras. And so, yeah, I agree with the people in the chats. The flock cameras are very pertinent and need to be done away with in a certain way. Like if you're worried about your car being stolen and you're like, well, if we had flock cameras, they could catch the thief. Get a dash cam. Put a tracker in your car. That stuff's not that expensive. You can manage this yourself without having giant big daddy government come in and save you. Like if you're worried about your personal property, protect it better. Don't force the government to mass surveil because you're worried about your personal property.
Yeah, and just as a closing thought, folks, my wife and I cross the Gasconade River Bridge in Mount Sterling every day, and we saw this solar panel with what looked like a camera on it. And I'm like, we're trying to figure out what that is. That, folks, if you live in Gasconade County or you pass that area every day, say hi to the flock camera as you're crossing the bridge, because I looked up what the flock cameras look like, and it looks exactly like the thing that's on the Gasconade River Bridge in Mount Sterling, Missouri. So wave hi to it every time you pass by. I think I'll be doing the opposite, telling it it's number one. All right, folks, that's going to do it for this week's edition of the Missouri Liberty Report. Again, Jake Jackson will be joining us next week to talk about his fight, especially against the flock cameras. Also, just a heads up, the 16th of June, there will be no show. My family and I will be on vacation that week, so no show that week, but we'll be right back the next Tuesday for another show. So thanks again to all of you who listen or watch and for your support. And we'll be right back here next Tuesday evening at 6:30 p.m. for another edition of the Missouri Liberty Report.